if somebody gives you a negative feedback, the first thing we take out of this is all the negativity. It's like, oh, I did it wrong. Oh my God, I shouldn't have done this. Everybody else can do it better, and so on. And what I like to people to do is think about it as something positive. First, somebody read your comment, post, linked article, whatever, and took time to respond to you. That's the first thing. So there will have been 100 people that went by your article and never read it. That person read it and gave you feedback.
The month of May holds a special place in my heart. Not only is it the month I was born in, but it's also Mental Health Awareness Month, especially here in North America, and I know it's getting bigger across the world. So, for this special month, we are honored to partner with Mission Save a Life, a new force in the fight against mental health stigma and suicide. Through education and advocacy, they're sparking conversations that lead to positive change. So, are you ready to join the conversation? Take the first step by visiting missionsavealife.org. Join our community, share your voice, and let's amplify the message of mental health awareness and suicide prevention. Together, we can be the change. And know that you are not alone, and you have a community of people that are here and ready to support you. No judgment, just love. Welcome to Unleash Thyself, a podcast where we journey into the depths of personal transformation, spirituality, and growth. I am your host, Constantin Morun, and today we're joined by Eric Berg, a visionary in the world of technology and a champion for mental health. Eric's role extends beyond his day job as the Vice President and Global Alliance Manager at CGI, where he leads the partnerships with Microsoft. He's also a committed advocate for mental health, volunteering his expertise as a technology advisor with Mission Save a Life. Eric's unique perspective comes from a career dedicated to questioning IT trends, developing innovative solutions, and leading significant alliances. He believes in the power of community, not just living in it, but actively contributing to keep it vibrant and alive. Today, we'll delve into how technology can serve as a catalyst for mental health awareness and support, and we'll also explore the importance of sharing our stories, being active community members, and so much more. So let's get into it and learn how we can leverage our roles for greater impact in our communities and beyond. But before we start, I have a small favor to ask. Please subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement helps us continue to bring these transformative stories to light. And before we begin, one last thing. I'm hosting an amazing event tomorrow, May 9th, 2024. Go over to calmsuccesslive.com to register and secure your spot. It's an event you won't want to miss. And now, let's begin. Hello, beautiful souls. I have with me Eric Berg. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. So for those listening, Eric and I met through a program, or I should say, a non-for-profit called Mission Save a Life, which was started by another one of our peers to help raise mental health awareness and prevent suicide, really. So, Eric, I'll start right there. What made you want to join Mission Save a Life, very similar to me, in the role of an advisor?
That's a pretty good question. So I think immediately, as you just mentioned, the peer that we have in common told me about her story and the stories that happened in her community, and that actually made me think about what I've seen so far in my life. So luckily, especially the topic suicide stood pretty much far away from us. I never had a direct friend or something taking their life, but I still, when I thought about it, I recognized, like, yeah, my sisters lost a friend that took his life. I came across a bridge here where there were flowers lying because somebody jumped off it. And so I just realized, yeah, it's a topic, and most likely people are just never talking about it. And bring it into the whole conversation that nobody wakes up and says, today is the day, because it's a process where you're struggling mentally and you're feeling not well. And then sometime you do a bad decision that feels right for you. That made me like, okay, maybe that's really important to talk about that. And then when I heard that Mission Save a Life also needs some help on the technical end, And as I'm a techie in hard, and I saw that I can have some impact on that side too. Yeah, that made me join them on the advisory panel. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I love the answer, Eric. And yeah, I was similar to your story, right? When I well, personally, I struggled with both mental health and, of course, suicidal thoughts at one point in my life, and I've realized that until I opened up to talk about it, it wasn't really accepted in, well, whatever I was, right? And even now, it's very tough because I'm seeing, as you and I started to join this community, and we start posting on LinkedIn, and we start posting across social media, there still seems to be a reluctance from other people to engage with the content. And I'm curious to see if you're seeing the same things, and maybe if you have some thoughts around why that happens.
Yeah, let's say I see a lot of people are jumping on it, saying like, "Wow, that's a great initiative," and I think it's important to do that. And as soon as you go back with like, "Hey, okay, then share your story. Tell me what have you experienced? What do you think we can do together?" And then people go radio silent because that's
Yes.
the moment where it gets uncomfortable. To say, "Oh, I like that. That's cool. Yeah, we should do that." That's everybody can do this. But going out and showing your weak side or telling somebody or helping somebody who is in a weak spot at the moment, that's where the trouble starts. And I think that's what makes people uncomfortable, and that's what makes people still shy away. And it's like, ha, ha, ha. Oh, maybe that could be a difficult conversation. So, well, I better go that route. And I
Yeah.
think that's, yeah, that's still a thing.
And that's
But everybody wants to talk about the bright side of life and about how successful we are and how great everything goes. And nobody goes out and tells you, "Hey, first time meeting you, did I tell you that I just broke down last week?" So that's what you normally don't do. Even though it might be a good conversation starter sometimes.
it could be, right? Absolutely. I'm with you there. And I know you mentioned the word weak in there, right? And that's how I felt back when I was struggling myself. And that was one reason I didn't want to reach out to people, because there were two reasons, right? One, that I felt alone and I didn't want to bother people with what I was feeling. But at the same time, I had a feeling that I would be judged for it, right? And here I am, someone that's a high performer working at Microsoft. So how could I go out and talk about this? But what I hadn't realized was that the power of my story, which now I share openly, impacts or can impact so many other beautiful people. In other words, it gives them permission to be able to share their story. So to your point, if someone says, yes, this is a great initiative, maybe take a moment to reflect back and see how your story could not only change your life, but can change the life of so many other people.
And it's a quite important thing. And as you're just mentioning Microsoft, there was Microsoft Ignite the tour. It's when they went around and went to different cities in the world, and they asked the MVPs, "Are you willing to contribute any session there?" And I typically do some technical sessions. Obviously, I do
Mhm.
an Azure session here, or a security session there, whatever. And I for quite a while I had in mind, I have a session that's a little bit about my life and what taught me how community works and what taught me how to engage with other people. And so I don't know why, but for that particular conference, I just submitted that session, which was talking about how Taekwondo taught me to live community. And I was like, most likely nobody at Microsoft would ever accept it because it's not technology related. It doesn't drive any sales. Like, why would they? But let me try it. And interestingly, Microsoft accepted the session. So then the next fear kicked in, and I was like, okay, now I have that session, but nobody will go there because people go to a technology conference to learn about tech and not to hear my story about some martial arts and some community work. And then I had a very small room. It was like, I would say there were 50 chairs in there, but it was like 100 people. There were
Wow.
people standing in the back. There were people sitting on the floor in the front. And I was like overwhelmed. And I was like, okay, there seems to be some interest. And I started telling my story. And after that, a lot of people came to me and said, like, yeah, experience the same. Thank you for sharing this. Oh, wow. That I think it's really important to share your knowledge with the community. Let's do that. And I laughed at the fact that on a tech conference, Microsoft allowed such a session and that people really reacted to it and that people saw a value in it. And I think that's pretty interesting. We all go out and tell we are the greatest techs, but we're also humans. We're also fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, whatever. We have a life besides all this tech stuff and hard work that we both
Yeah.
do. And that was quite cool to see. absolutely, yeah.
Wow, I love the story, Eric. And that shows you that companies or people, if they make a decision to, you know what, hey, we are in this niche, let's say technology, but we are people first. So let's bring in more conversation around the people side of things. Because if you improve the person, if that person changes, then the business changes too for the better. So that's such an amazing story. I would love to dive deeper into what you talked about there. So before we do that, though, what I've also seen with conferences these days, I've been attending some for the podcasting world and some for the tech world, and these type of topics are still primarily missing, right? Like you don't, like you did it, which is amazing, but it's still very rare. So I
Yeah.
hope that those are listening to us right now, if you work for a big organization or even a small one and you're about to attend a conference, maybe see if you can promote something like that you can speak about, or partner up with others that could do that. Like personally, like you, Eric, I would love to be able to go to a conference and be like, hey, I'd love to share my story and the story of so many people I've met, because in that there is power and you build community, and now people get permission essentially to be able to be like, you know what? If he can do it and if she did it, then I can do it too.
And I think I did that on some technical stuff in the past, where it's like talking about the real life story. Because you know what we normally do when we do a demo, we show the perfect demo. It's the no, you don't do a typo, you don't do anything that brings up a red line in your code. Everything is working from beginning to end, because you just have 30 minutes, 45 minutes on stage. So you will not put something in that's not working. But then people go back home and try things for the first time, and they feel like dumb or idiots or whatever, because it looked so easy on stage, but now I'm trying it and I'm not able to do it. So what I did in the past was like how to fail a cloud migration. And I was talking about stories that I did, where I, for example, for one of my clients here in Germany, we were migrating stuff to the cloud, and we actually killed the whole telephony system. So nobody was able to do any phone call anymore. Um, but then I explained why it happened and what I could have done differently and how to prevent it. So to give people the opportunity to not do the same mistake. And people really appreciated it, that, oh, well, now Eric is also doing mistakes in the migration. That feels good. Actually, the guy on stage is not Mr. Perfect. And
Yes.
now he also shared with us how to prevent it on our own. I think that's also an important piece. And that's where you can mix those two topics, even when talking about tech. Just be a human and tell, like, hey, yeah, we're failing too. I also don't know all the PowerShell commands in life. And on the other side, yeah, talking a little bit about the non-tech topics too. And yeah, it would be cool if conferences would adjust more to those topics.
Yeah, right. Because if the person gets to be seen a bit more, if the person gets, like you said, to see that they're not alone, to be able to improve that aspect of their life, then everything else around work, around their passions, their careers will improve as well. So everyone wins in the end, right? And I love
Absolutely.
what the story you told, because social media does a very good job of portraying this image of perfection. And then, of course, conferences are the same thing, because you have a short amount of time per speaker. So you can't introduce too much, and they want it to be as perfect as possible, but that doesn't reflect reality. So I love that you go there, and that's a testament to why they keep calling you back and they want you to speak at these conferences.
Yep. I hope so, at least.
Hey, Constantin here with a quick interruption. I'm so excited to announce that we will be hosting live events moving forward that are all about giving back to our beautiful community. Now, I have this event coming up on May the 9th, 2024, and it's a 4-hour masterclass dedicated to helping you get to a place in life where you can achieve more, stress less, and create time for what you love without sacrificing anything that you care about. Now, if that sounds like something you would be interested in, I would welcome you to come to this event. Now, to find out more, go to calmsuccesslive.com and you'll be able to register for the event. And if you can't catch it live, you'll be able to catch the recordings. And I cannot wait to see you there. Now, back to the episode.
Yep. To do that, I think we have to go even further back
Yes, of course.
into my childhood, and that's the thing that I was talking about earlier that feels uncomfortable to share that, but I think it's important. So before there was community, there was nobody, and
Mm,
that was the tough thing. So when I was 8, 9 years old. We moved to a new city, or it's not a city, it was a village. There were 1,500 people in that small village. So I had to go to a new school, and it started like a mess. The first day I went to school, we've been there before. I met my teacher, and it was like, yeah, you go into that room on Monday morning, and there your class is waiting and everything. I went to school. I went in that room. Nobody was there, and I was totally lost. I was like 8 years old. Nobody was in the room that I expected my whole class to be in. I didn't know anyone. So what did I do? I go back home. So I went back home. My dad was sitting there. I was like, what are you doing here? I was like, I went to school. Nobody was there. I just came back. And he was like, okay, come on. So he took me. We went back to school. For whatever reason, they changed the room for the day, but nobody thought about the new guys coming. And so they were in a different room. I arrived. It was okayish, but like the first feeling was, what the freaking hell is going on here? So they told me, we are happy that you're coming, and then they're not in the room. That's like, there was a bit of a starting point. And then when I was younger, and I'm not the thinnest guy in life, and kids can be mean. Kids can be really, really mean. So there was this, no, we don't play with that guy, with the new guy, with the fat guy, with the whatever guy. And that hurts. And that is something that as a kid, and you're new to something, you don't know anyone, that really hurts. And there was one of my neighbors who actually said, like, hey, I go to the city that's next to ours, and I go to traditional Taekwondo, which is a Korean art of self-defense, for those out there that don't know about Taekwondo. And he was like, do you want to come with me? I was like, okay. And but the first thoughts I had is that he wants to take me there to laugh at me because I'm not capable of doing it or whatever. But no, he was really nice. He meant it really. And so I went there, and it was like in my first training session, there were at least 40 people in the room, and I was like in the last row in the left end corner where like you can't see anything and they can't see you. And we tried things out. And my master at this time, he let everybody else sit down and said, hey, new guy, Eric, do the thing we did just right now. And I did a kick or whatever. I don't remember anymore. And he was like, hey, well done for your first time. That's really good. And it felt incredible. It felt incredible. And so that's where I started with Taekwondo. And then over the time, I still had struggles in school. At some point, I learned to not care that much about. It's not possible that everybody loves you. I had some close friends and some people that were really bullying me. There were some older kids that were hitting me in the bus. There were some kids that are just dropping my bag and things like that. So really, really horrible. But I had this kind of safe place, and that was the sports. I went there in the end 4 or 5 times a week. Spent 2 hours there training hard, training my body. I got stronger. I got flexible with my body. I also helped my brain to grow because I got more self-confidence and things like that. And so, yeah, they were still bullying me, but more and more and more, I just gave a shit on it. Because like, okay, bully me. That's fine. Yeah. I know what I can do. Come closer. It's like shifting the mood from, oh, no, don't hit me to, okay, come closer. Let's do that. I never got into a fight, interestingly, because at some point I changed an attitude to show strength, and that made them go away over time. And that's pretty much the story about the Taekwondo. That really made me strong. And while doing that, I got in contact with so many people. So Taekwondo in Germany, traditional Taekwondo, was quite huge that time. We sometimes had training camps with 2,000 people. Being there on a big sports field, doing, and it's like doing the same movement at the same time also feels really connecting. And on the other side, there were so many people. There were people from Munich to Hamburg. There were people from Dresden to Cologne. And like you have different languages or dialects in Germany. But there even were people that don't speak German. You had, and everybody had the same thing in common. We loved Taekwondo. And that taught me a lot about, other people, how to take other people, because some of them were rude too. But in the end, we all wanted the same. And that's a little bit what I also was talking about at the session. And then later in my life, so in this time, I didn't really realize that. But later in my life, I realized my father was a professional truck driver. So he was gone from Sunday evening to Friday night, Saturday morning. So I didn't see my father the whole week. My father was just more or less existing Saturday, Sunday. I was a great father. We did a lot together. We renovated the whole house that my parents are still living in, and it's all good. I never had a bad childhood. But at some point, I realized I saw my master more often than my father. And he taught
Mm,
me lessons for life that maybe otherwise my father would have done. But it was good for me because, yeah, he got me into a lot of things. And then pretty early, I think it was 14, maybe 14 years old, I got into, okay, I'm teaching the kids now. So I got a kids trainer. And I had a group of 6 to 10-year-old kids that were twice a week getting training from me. And I love that, to see them grow and to give them like what I've learned, because there were also kids that got bullied or kids that got angry on someone. And I was able to give them a little bit of, hey, you don't need that. Think about yourself, help others. The stronger helps the weaker, and so on and so on. And I took that. I took that into life. I took that into professional life. I still do it with my kids. And that's pretty much what I was talking about in that talk at Ignite. And that's what kind of, yeah, really shaped my life and helped me over some really bad periods. Obviously, in my teenage years, there were some very bad years where you're thinking about like, oh my God, I'm the fat guy that has not so many friends. Everybody else gets invited to a party. I'm sitting at home. Oh, my whole life is ruined. We never had much money. That also makes life sometimes very, very difficult because others can go to the summer camp. You can't because you just cannot afford it. And, and that brings up really bad thoughts. I've never really considered suicide, but I know there was a time when I read a lot about it because it's.
mm,
I wanted to. I don't know why, but it was like I wanted to understand the reasons and the mechanics. Like what happens if you do that? What's the impact if you really would go that route? So I never was at the edge to say, okay, tomorrow I'll go into the forest and do whatever. Um, but actually, I had a lot of interest, and I think it's not so healthy to be at a point where you have a lot of interest in that topic. Um, and yeah, and actually, it was always what was pulling me out was, oh no, on weekend there is this tournament. Oh no, next week there's the kids training again, and that really pulled me out. And then, like with 17, 18, a lot changed in my life. New friends came that I still have until today. They brought some new perspectives in. Some people that bothered me in the past went out of school. So that changed a lot. And then from 17, 18 on, a lot of things went easier. But yeah, there were some really, really hard years in between. And I think that's what made me the person that I am today. But I would never say it was easy.
yeah, absolutely. Wow, what a powerful story, Eric. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And like you said, those are some tough conversations to have and to share. But I can imagine from the hundreds of people listening to this, when it goes live, at least a few can relate themselves or have someone in their life, a child, maybe a cousin, someone that can relate to that big time, right? And by bringing up these stories, again, it's all about not making people feel like they're alone. Because I would imagine in your case, based on what the story you told, you felt very alone at times
Oh,
until
yeah.
you were able to join the group that you joined and the community that you joined. And I know on your LinkedIn profile, because I have it up here on my screen as well, you finish your about section with something beautiful. You said, what we all need, the community lives from the community, and only those who participate keep it alive.
Yeah.
Let's dive in a little bit deeper because I love what you said because there's many communities out there, right? But
Yeah.
most of them are very quiet. Most of them, you see a post every month or so, and like you said, people are like, yeah, this is cool, but then nothing happens. How do you see us shifting communities, virtual ones at least, but also in-person ones, over time to actually keep them alive through
Yeah.
participation or other methods?
Oh, that's a pretty difficult one, I think. In many communities, you have a lot of consumers and less givers or contributors. And it's like, I could even say that about Taekwondo. There had been people that went there, did a training session, went home. They never took part in the activities we did there. So, like after training, we cleaned the whole training facility, training facility, and uh, some people just after training went out, drove home, and I was like there 4 times a week cleaning. I was there. My sometimes my mom called me. She's like, "Shouldn't you be at home?" I was like, "No, I'm still scrubbing the toilets." And like as a, I don't know, 14-year-old scrubbing toilets, that changes something in you if you learn it's just part of our community. We use the toilets, we have to clean the toilets. There was no company coming in doing that for us. It was us. And the one week it was me, and the other week it was someone else doing it. So and I think that has always been that there are people that just participate in a way that they consume, but they never give back. But I think, and I've seen most of them leaving the communities at some point because they took out, they took out, they took out, and then at some point it was like, okay, there's nothing more to take out. So what keeps me here? And those people that really participated, that shared their thoughts, that came into a discussion, that, and sometimes it's even like a hard fight about who's wrong or who's right, but it keeps you engaged, and that keeps you in the loop and in the community. And I think the whole online world has made it more and more difficult because, like, for me, training that was in person, I drove there with my bicycle 4 times a week. I drove back with my bicycle, and it was I think it was like 10 kilometers one way.
Oh
uh,
wow. Yeah.
so it was I really had to be convinced to go there. Like, if I would have had any doubt, I wouldn't have jumped on my bike to go there. um, so I wanted to be there. And in these online communities, it's so easy. You like LinkedIn, you click a button, thumbs up, it's nice. You don't even need to write a comment. If I'm in a room with you and you tell me something, I cannot just this and turn around. That's just not gonna happen. This conversation here wouldn't work if I just give you a thumbs up and then swipe to the next post. And I think that's what makes this the difference. The online communities can be really great because it gives you a reach. It gives you an opportunity to connect with people from across the world that you couldn't do in person because traveling is sometimes expensive. So it brings you into contact with others. That's great. But this one-on-one conversation, this I see, I hear, I feel you. That is something where, and that's why I totally understand people go into church or people go into other communities or go into a chess club, whatever it is. But to be together with like-minded people that I can exchange with, I think that's pretty much important. And my call out to everybody out there would be, don't be a consumer, be a contributor, because everybody of us wants to learn something or get something or become better, depending on where you're going. But also everybody who's telling you something would be happy if he would get something back in return. And maybe it's just a smile or the clap of hands or whatever. And maybe sometimes it's really a conversation and an open ear.
I love this so much, Eric. And you know what's interesting? I've been a consumer in this scenario a few times in my life at different stages.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, what it was two things, right? Let's call it an apathy towards, like, no, I don't want to put the effort in. I don't want to do this. But also a fear that I have nothing to say, or maybe I would be ridiculed if I said something, right? Like, fear played a huge role in my ability to be part of a community. So I wonder, for those listening and for what you've seen, how we can reduce some of that. So then for you go from a contributor, sorry, we go from someone that's not necessarily contributing to someone that's contributing and shares their thoughts, because there is power behind everyone's beliefs and thoughts and stories, versus just consuming.
Well, let's say the bad feedback problem, it's existing.
Yes.
Or what's maybe even worse is the no feedback problem. Like, if you get bad feedback, you potentially can learn something from it. If you post something or you write something or you do something and nobody's reacting to it, that's killing it. I think the most important thing, and it's something that I have learned and that I'm also given away in a lot of mentorships and coachings that I do with fellows, is we are, I don't know why, but we are born to see the bad side of things. We always take the negative out of everything. And it's like, if you have a look at Amazon comments to a product, it's always the bad thing. Nobody goes back there and says, like, wow, that was the best buy of my life. That really helped me in my kitchen or whatever. Nobody's doing that. Most people are just like, oh yeah, it got broken after 6 months. Okay, because you dropped it and you used it wrong. But it's not what you're writing down. And we are kind of programmed to think about the bad. And if somebody gives you a negative feedback, the first thing we take out of this is all the negativity. It's like, oh, I did it wrong. Oh my God, I shouldn't have done this. Everybody else can do it better, and so on. And what I like to people to do is think about it as something positive. First, somebody read your comment, post, linked article, whatever, and took time to respond to you. That's the first thing. So there will have been 100 people that went by your article and never read it. That person read it and gave you feedback. And even if it's negative feedback, they took care of it, they thought about it, and they gave you feedback. And it's like I can compare it to posting code on developer communities. I remember when I was starting, for example, with PowerShell. So that's not development, I know, but scripting. And I posted something online, and then you really took hours to crave that, and you had something and it was partly working, and then you gave it back to the community, and you're like, I don't think, or I don't know why it's not working. And people were like, oh yeah, you could solve that in one line. You don't need the whole script. You can just do this. And the first times I was like, damn it, I'm stupid. What I just said. And then later I realized, oh no, I just learned something.
Yes.
That's good. People gave me feedback. I learned something. You still have the people that are just rude or that just want to tell you your shit or whatever. Okay, put them away. Those are trolls. Those are idiots. That happens in life. But every time somebody really replies to you, it's something good because it actually they took care of what you were doing. And I think that's the thing. Like if you read something and you say, the only thing I could write is a correction or I have a different opinion or whatever, that's not bad. That's still good because it starts a conversation and it shows people that you care. And I think that's good overall. So having a little bit of a positive mindset in those things helps a lot.
Absolutely. Like, I love that so much. And it reminds me of something I talk a lot about with in my coaching and on this podcast as well, the idea of always looking at everything that happens around you as happening for you. And if we have that mindset, like you said, positive mindset where something happens for you, that means that there's always something you can take out of it, a lesson, a teaching, an idea. And the example you gave is so beautiful, right? Because even if it's, let's say, constructive criticism or negative feedback, there's so much positivity in there because human nature, like you said, negativity bias, which you mentioned, prevalent everywhere, and it has an evolutionary reason why it's there, right? Because for what most of our existence as human beings, it wasn't safe out there, so it makes sense why we evolved with our brains looking at like everything that's negative and that's hitting us first. So anyway, going back to what I was saying is like when there's these comments or these interactions that's not ideal, well, the other part I've noticed is that we can also look on the other side and say, well, there's another human typing this. We don't know what he or she is going through, right?
Yeah.
So they may be saying something negative because, there has something bad happen in their life and they just need a way to vent, right? So those trolls, those people you mentioned as well, at least they're keeping your posts engaged because the more people comment, all these social media platforms, they're promoting your post. So there's always something in it for you. It's just that, like you said, we're not trained to look for what's in it for us. We all always look at like, how is this happening to me? Which is very disempowering.
Yeah, and I think, and it's interestingly a conversation I just recently had with my wife. So she's a professional photographer, and like I think that's for many artists, it's a hard thing to produce a product that people can potentially not like. And that's the thing. If you do photos, you do a photo and people look at it and say, nah, that's not my style. I look not good enough on that picture. Why haven't you done it differently? And that's once again the thing. So they don't think about the work you put into it, that you have your style, that you have a way to do it. And they give you back negative feedback. And I always say, like, hey, if you do photos at an event, for example, you're doing photos of hundreds and hundreds of people. It's natural that not everybody will like what you're doing there. There are people that like artificial backgrounds. There are people that like native backgrounds. There are people that like photos where everybody sits there and is positioned rightly. And there are people that like photos that are just out of the moment, where you maybe do a stupid face, but it's actually how you've been in that moment. And it shows how you naturally are. And the idea, and then now we can translate it to all the other activities. The idea that I post something on LinkedIn, and everybody out there is the same opinion and likes what I have to say, that's just not going to happen. There are those people that have a totally different mindset, that have different experiences in life, that have seen different things, that come out of a different culture or background. And so naturally, there will be people that don't think the same as I do. And that's, if we start appreciating this as a part of diversity, and it's good that there are different, let's assume we would be all the same, thinking the same? Wouldn't it be so boring?
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
think as soon as you take this into account, it makes a lot of things that normally push you back a lot easier, because you're like, oh yeah, that it's supposed to be like this. If it wouldn't be like this, something would be wrong. That's what I try to get people to think a bit more about.
Yeah, I love that. And you're absolutely right, because that was one of my holdbacks a while back when I started thinking about doing a podcast and sharing my story, was the fear of being liked by everyone, right? Which is essentially, again, goes back to an innate fear within all human beings, which is fear of rejection, fear of failure. And at least the way I grew up in Eastern Europe and then later in Canada, everything is portrayed as no, 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 you got to be everything to everyone, which means that you have to somehow be liked by everyone, somehow have to be accepted by everyone. And that's just, like you said, not the reality, because we're so different. Yet we have similarities that we don't need to be accepted by everyone. It doesn't mean we have to be mean about it or be rebellious, but we can accept the fact that, yes, I'm going to post this and Eric might not agree with it and he'll just walk past it. Or if he has time and he's so inclined, he might leave me a comment and then we can go back and forth. And this
Yeah.
happens in your day-to-day life as well, right? Like when I was a child or a teenager and going to a party, for example, did you hang out with everyone? Probably not, right? And in adulthood, the same thing. You go to a large gathering, you're not going to be able to hang out and even have a connection with every single person.
Yeah. And there's one thing that I would like to add here, because I said
Yes.
sometimes the more hard thing is to not get feedback. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why a lot of people either don't start to do anything for their communities, or why people stop too soon. And I
Mm,
absolutely can relate to that. And I just want to share that story because I
of
think
course,
it's
absolutely.
quite interesting. I was working in IT. I did a lot of projects, a bunch of Citrix stuff at this time, always a lot of Windows Server client pieces. And one day at work, I just realized every time I don't know further, I start Googling for things. So I take the search machine of my choice and I start, has anybody seen this and this error, or how to solve this? And, and for whatever reason, I realized, hey, if nobody would write down, I could never find it. And so I started writing down things that I found, because I was managing a very, very huge Citrix implementation and on top of Windows servers. And so there was a lot of things going on that just didn't work.
Mhm.
And so I started blogging all the things, and I started it for myself mainly. So I have it as a journal. So you did that, you did that. And after, I think it was 2 or 3 months, I stopped it, because it was like you look at the click rates of your website. It's, if you're new to blogging, is there's nothing. Nobody's leaving you a comment. Nobody's leaving you a thumbs up. Nobody's interacting at all. And like the years when I started, there wasn't even a thing like LinkedIn or so where you could have reshared the posts. It was just my website and I was like, after 3 months, I was so disappointed about this whole thing. And I was like, it's nice that people write down things, but if nobody's searching for it, it's absolutely nonsense. It's a waste of time. And so it took me like, I think 1 month, 2 months, I didn't post anything. And then someone from Japan wrote me an email. And you have to know, at this time, my blog was written in German. Um,
Mm.
and so someone from Japan sent me a note and like, hey, Eric, I was searching for this issue, or this, to how to solve this issue, for more than 1.5 years, and I finally found the solution on your blog. And it was a solution with a media driver in Citrix Synapse, some version I don't know anymore. And he was able to find a solution on my German-speaking blog from Japan, and it solved an issue he was fighting for 1.5 years. And that made me like, what the hell? That's it. This is it. You just need to give things time to actually kick in. For sure, if you start to do things, if you start to engage in your local community, if you start to engage in the school of your kids, if you start to engage in the technology community, it takes time. It's not that you go there, do the first thing, and people will be like, yeah, you're the greatest. No, absolutely not. You will do 3 months, 3 years, whatever, and people would just say, uh-huh. But at some point, you will realize it was good that I did it. And then people will realize it was good that you did it. And then you see it growing and growing and growing. And there are articles on my blog that are like 5, 6 years old that are still clicked hundreds of times every week, because people still see value in it and still learn from it. And there was even one point in time I sat together with an architect from Microsoft in a room, and he was looking for the most recent update to System Center, and he Googled for it. And it was like the first entry was my blog, and the second entry was the official download website. And he looked at me like, "How did you do that?" I was like, "I have no clue. I just posted about it." So and I think that's the thing. Not getting feedback really hurts. I totally understand that, and it's very frustrating. And you will question yourself: Why am I doing this? Nobody said thank you. Nobody looked at it. Nobody gave me a thumbs up. But sure, that's what happens sometimes, and many times. And at some point, it will start kicking in. So just keep on doing things. And I did it really out of the okay. I believe it's necessary because I'm participating the same way. I was a consumer in the beginning, and I thought, no, I should be a contributor. So let me start doing something. And to overcome this frustration of nobody's looking at it, that was hard, but it helped me a lot to see community in a different shade. Yeah.
That's a beautiful story, Eric. And it reminds me of one of my own as well. And you and I are both podcasters, and I went through pretty much the same process, thinking about starting a podcast, then starting it. Of course, mine started last year when social media is booming already. But everything you see on social media is success of people, and it makes it look like it's not necessarily easy, but like you can be successful super fast, and then when that doesn't happen, then you can quit, and then you can give up, and then you can beat yourself up and do all those things. And one thing I've done, because I knew it's not going to be big overnight, but I had a voice, I wanted to share it. It's becoming a contributor because I was consuming all these podcasts. Now it's time for me to give back as well. But at the same time, the idea of feedback, to get feedback for my show, what I did, simply reach out to friends, colleagues even. People, I say, hey, I'm putting this thing out. I would love if you give it a listen. Let me know what you think. Right? Positive, negative, right? Constructive, doesn't matter. You give it to me, right? And that, like to your point, if we can start getting that feedback earlier, then it can incentivize you to continue, right? Even when you don't believe in yourself and you have someone else telling you, hey, you're doing a good job, it does something where you can.
And that's maybe the message for the consumers out there. Just give a nice feedback. Just say, thank you for all your work. Great article, or maybe even didn't help me, but at least it shows people that you are listening to it or looking at it or watching it or whatever. So giving feedback really helps. And that was, by the way, that was one of the very hard times. So I'm speaking at a lot of conferences, and I normally love to play with the crowd. Like, you know, doing a joke, and then people are laughing, and or saying something very controversial, and you see how the crowd is like rumoring. And during COVID, that was horrible. You sat in front of your laptop, you stared into a camera, you were talking, you were making a joke, and nothing happened. And many people just dropped off at the last word you said, and that's it. And it really felt so stupid because you were talking to your computer for no feedback. And so I was so happy when we finally got back into real conferences and real people meeting. And I've also seen that the community liked that, because they also had the problem, like, I don't know how to engage, and I want to have a conversation with the speaker afterwards, but in this online community, I cannot really have a one-on-one because there's 50 people listening when I ask my question. That makes me uncomfortable, and so on. So I think that was a hard time, and it took us a bit of time to overcome this again and to get people back into. Now we're back in the mood, and I think both has its value, because the online versions, and especially all the podcasts out there, have the potential to reach a lot of people that maybe cannot afford it or are too far away to a certain conference or community or something. So from that end, that's super helpful. But still, I'm a big lover of in-person communication, so that helps a lot.
Yeah. That was a big shift for me as well. And actually, funny enough, I'm working with a team I hired here recently to put on virtual events so I can have a bigger reach in terms of everything I talk about when it comes to my system around coaching and mentorship, and how people can take their life from one point to the next, right, to achieve more stress less, create time for what they love. And what I figured, or working with them, what I've realized is that when I'm running my own online events, which I've done in the past, I wasn't engaging the audience enough. I wasn't providing opportunities for that feedback to come through. I wasn't providing a space where there was engagement, because it's so much different than in person, right? And we sometimes take what works in one area and then bring it to this other area, and then it doesn't work anymore, or it works a lot less. So to your point, I think we've learned so much from COVID to now that we can do both in person and these virtual ones that are amazing. Because I've been in some virtual meetings or virtual master classes or 5-day challenges that have been simply amazing, engaging from start to finish. And I always thought, oh, that's not me. That's not how I can do it. But then I realized, wait a second, if they can do it, I can do it too. And it's just a matter of finding out
absolutely
how to do it.
And as you're mentioning coaching, maybe a quick little story to share, because that's something that impacted me again. And it was like 2 years ago when I thought I'm in the midst of everything and everything works out. I have a very successful career. I cannot complain. So for whatever reason, I thought I'm the king. And it was actually interesting because throughout my whole career, I never had any opportunity for coaching or something. I also never asked for it because I never thought about it. And my company came and said, oh, we have a program that gives you a virtual coach. It was during the COVID times also, or end of the COVID times. So they had a virtual coaching platform. And it was like, yeah, you can get, I think, 6 months, 5 months, 6 months access to this and try it out and give us feedback, because we are considering getting this for all the employees or not, or maybe using a different one, whatever. So I was trying that out. And I got it together with a coach out of Germany here. And he joined the first call. And normally, I guess you go to coaching with a concrete problem or a thing you want to solve or a thing where you want to go. And I went in with okay, let's see. I never took a look back in my life. I always went from one job to the next, from one role to the next. If somebody said we need help, I said, yep, here I am. But I never questioned myself. So I thought, well, maybe it could be an interesting exercise to go into coaching. And if the company is paying for it, it's not a loss if it's not working. So I went in there and I had a first conversation with the guy. It was pretty good. We really had a connection and that worked. He had a similar way how he went through life. So that was quite interesting. And then he was like, yeah, what do we want to work on? I was like, I don't know. Like, is there anything that bothers you at work? And it was like, yeah, there's one thing, and that's people that don't have a self-motivation to work. Like if you need to call people 5 times a week to get their stuff done, that really frustrates me. It was like, yeah, okay, we can talk a little bit about that. So I learned a lot about how to see people differently again and so on. And then I was like, yeah, it would be cool to have more time. And I just said that because it's like, that's the answer for everything. Oh, if I have more time. And he started asking me the why.
Yes.
And that's something I learned for myself. Sometimes just holding back and asking yourself why. Why am I doing this? Why am I rushing that way? Why do I think I need to do this just because someone said it? And he asked me the why, in a way, in my second session with him. I sat here at this desk, just in another house. I sat and I was crying. I broke down, I cried, and I felt like, what the hell is happening to me? And then I took a minute to calm down again, and it was like, yeah, Eric, what's wrong? And I was like, actually, your question about the why made sense to me because of my dad. Because I told you earlier, my dad was a professional truck driver. He was never at home. And the one sentence I heard from my dad was, when I'm retiring, I will. When I'm retiring, I will be in my garden. When I'm retiring, I will enjoy my house. When I'm retiring, I will go on vacation. So all the things he never really did because he never had time to. When he was at home on the weekends, he built this house and he built this garden, but he never had time to experience it or just sit there and watch the trees and whatever. And then some years ago, he fell from his truck, broke his back, got really, really sick. Nobody really knew if he will recover at one point. He wasn't able to sit, stand, or lie longer than 2 hours because he had to change positions. It was really, really bad. Been in hospital very, very long. And at this time, I had my coaching. And I realized I don't want to be I do this when I retire guy. So that's what I kind of had with my dad, seeing how he saved his future for his retirement and he's not able to do it. Luckily, just to relieve everybody of you, he recovered, he's good, he's not able to work anymore, but he's able to at least enjoy his garden and having a good life. And he's retired now, by the way. But that was, and I never thought about that. This was somewhere in me, deep down in me. I had this, I don't want to work to death, and then I had never enjoyed it. And this question why And he repeatedly said it, by the way. And I gave him the first reason. It was like, no, but the real why. That brought it up to the surface. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was the moment when I was sitting here crying and I was like, fuck, I don't want to save my life for my retirement. I want to live now. I want to do my decisions. I want to do whatever
Yes.
is on top of my mind. And
Yes.
that
Yes.
was really interesting. And like after 15 years of a successful career where I thought like there's nothing that I could complain about, there was a thing that was somewhere hidden that someone helped me to discover. And that was eye-opening, to be honest.
Oh, I love this story, Eric, and I smile so much because that was my catalyst as well. I call it finding your why, finding your purpose, but understanding why you do the things you do. Why do you want more money? Why do you want fame? Why do you want ABC? And like you said, right, usually the first few answers we give ourselves are just the lies that
Yeah.
we've been telling ourselves for so long and the stories of other people. And I love that he went deeper with you because there's a thing, when you get to about 5 to 7 whys, that's when the true reason comes up. And then, like in your case, he sets you back because you're like, it's the first time in your life you have awareness as to why
Yeah.
something is the way it is. Such a beautiful story there, Eric. Wow. That's even a great way to get us to the conclusion. But before I let you go, Eric, I mean, this is just amazing. I could talk to you for hours here. Is there anything else that comes up for you that you would like to share with the audience?
I want to say, I think we
covered
gave a
lots of
lot of
beautiful
advice
stuff.
already. I think the important thing is be a contributor, maybe to a small community, to a big community, to your family, to your friends. Just give back. I think that's pretty important. And maybe based on the last stories, sometimes step back and ask why. I think that helps a lot.
Yes, yes, yes. And I love because on your LinkedIn, speaking of that, right, you say this, you have an interesting motto, right? Never underestimate someone
Yeah.
who takes a step backwards. Because sometimes we got to take a step backwards and realize we took a left turn, we should have taken a right turn. So now we take it back so we can readjust course and move in the right direction. Eric, such a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you so much for being on the show. Beautiful soul, you made it to the end of our episode here together. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being with us, for supporting our show, and I hope you got as much value out of this episode as I got making it. And I'm so excited to inform you of the events we're starting to host every 4 to 6 weeks. And the first one is just a few days away on May the 9th. Our events are called Calm Success Live. And these events are all about helping you go from a place of perhaps being too busy, overwhelmed, stressed, burnt out, anxious, and any other ailments to a place where you achieve more, stress less, and create time for what's truly important to you without sacrificing anything that you care about. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, go to calmsuccesslive.com and register today. And I'll see you there. Have a blessed day.